correctly, the U.S. military shot down a U.S. drone being operated by a different government agency. That's basically what we know, and we know it because of the reporting of this man, CNN's Pete Muntean, our chief aviation correspondent. Pete, this is wild to me. Please fill us in on the details here.
Well, John, I just got a very rare joint statement from the agencies involved in this, which signals the Trump administration and the White House is really playing cleanup right now, since this sounds a lot like the El Paso incident of 2 weeks ago when an anti-drone laser was used without concern for commercial flights. That incident led the FAA to trigger a chaotic emergency airspace shutdown and really highlighted the lack of basic communication between government agencies. This new case is described by 3 Democrats in Congress as essentially a friendly fire incident involving a government drone. A congressional aide tells me that these members, including the top Democrat on the committees overseeing Homeland Security and also transportation, were told about this incident through official channels yesterday. And in a statement, they say the military shot down a Customs and Border Protection drone using what those House Democrats call a high-risk counter-unmanned aircraft system. What's interesting is that the FAA has now shut down the airspace over the border town of Fort Hancock, Texas. Like the El Paso restriction of 2 weeks ago, this prohibits all aircraft, which is unusual, but this is much smaller than the El Paso restriction. That was a ring 20 miles in diameter. This is only about 9 miles wide. Right now, still not clear when this incident occurred that these House Democrats describe, but here is the new statement from Customs and Border Protection, the Department of Defense, and the Federal Aviation Administration, in which they all together say this shoot-down did not happen near people or planes. The agencies say this reported engagement occurred when the Department of War employed counter-unmanned aircraft system authorities to mitigate a seemingly threatening unmanned aerial system operating within military airspace. By the way, Congress has still not been briefed officially on that El Paso incident of 2 weeks ago, though there have been really major calls to do so. Now a congressional aide tells me it's time for the military to brief them on this incident too, really highlighting maybe the military and the government has not learned its lesson about using these counter-drone systems at the border, with so much concern there about drone incursions over the border.
Pete, very quickly here. In theory, and maybe I'm naive here, in theory, I would think there'd be communication between one government agency if it's flying drones somewhere so they don't get shot down by the U.S. military. Am I being naive?
Well, in the El Paso incident, our reporting across multiple teams here, including our Pentagon team and myself, really highlighted that there was not a lot of talking between the two agencies, the part of government that runs aviation and controls the airspace, and the military, which is now using this weapon. Our initial reporting said that this high-energy laser, which uses very concentrated heat to essentially melt the parts and innards of drones, can really be dangerous to airplanes. And pilots are especially sensitive to the use of lasers because there are so often lasers used by pranksters on the ground. You can buy one on Amazon. The most important instrument in an airplane is the pilot's eyes. So it can be of really, really high risk. And that is why the FAA initially shut down the airspace in El Paso for what was going to be several weeks, only turned into a few hours. So we'll see as this develops, as more and more in Congress are finding out about this, and more pressure is put on agencies to really communicate better here. Well, Wolf, I just got a rare joint statement from the agencies involved here, and it signals that the Trump administration's really playing cleanup now. It sounds a lot like the El Paso incident of 2 weeks ago, when sources tell me an anti-drone laser was used without concern for commercial flights. And that incident led the FAA to trigger an emergency airspace shutdown, very chaotic, and highlighted a lack of communication between the government agencies. This new case is described by 3 Democrats in Congress as essentially a friendly fire incident involving a government drone. A congressional aide tells me that these members, including top Democrats on the committees overseeing Homeland Security and Transportation, were told about this incident through official channels. In a statement, they say, the military shot down a Customs and Border Protection drone using what House Democrats call a high-risk counter-unmanned aircraft system. What's interesting is that the FAA has now shut down the airspace over the border town of Fort Hancock, Texas. Unlike the El Paso restriction, this prohibits all aircraft, which is quite unusual, but this is much smaller than the El Paso restriction that was a 20-mile ring in diameter. This one only about 9 miles wide. Right now, still not clear when the incident occurred that these congressmen described. But here is the new statement from Customs and Border Protection, the Department of Defense, and the Federal Aviation Administration, in which they all together say this shoot down did not happen near people, did not happen near planes. The agencies say, quote, this reported engagement occurred when the Pentagon employed counter-unmanned aircraft system authorities to mitigate a seemingly threatening unmanned aerial system.